to order. It's 7 o'clock now, and we get a roll call, please.
Egan.
Here.
Hoffenberg.
Here.
Mosier.
Here.
O'Connor is absent. Schwartz.
Here.
Wentink.
Here.
And Pace. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you very much. I trust everyone has read the minutes. It's quite long. Is there, I know Glenn has some adjustments, just 2 adjustments?
Just two minor typos, but I move we accept them subject to review of the typo.
Okay. Anyone else? Any changes? Did you receive anything over online? No? Okay. Good deal. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved. Okay, great. Today is Plan Commission Case 277, Special Use Permit, Site Plan Approval, and Design Review Permit for Eco-Weekend Space at 30 South La Grange Road. It's called Brick and Mortar. And assuming staff has a presentation?
Yep.
Go for it.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you again. As Greg said, we'll be hearing the case for special use permit, site plan approval, and design review permit for a co-working and retail space at 30 South La Grange Road. Here's just kind of a map of where the location is at. It's on South La Grange Road, in between Calendar Ave and East Harris Avenue, just right across the Village Hall almost. This is what the business looked like formerly. So it was Nixon's Eatery. It was in the restaurant, and it was there for quite a bit of time. And in 2021, the applicants purchased property and applied for a similar use. It was a co-working space as well as a retail space, which I'll kind of get into more, and it's also in the staff report. But upon applying for that, they started work but did not complete it. So currently, this is what the property looks like. As mentioned, in June of 2021, the applicant applied and was approved for a text amendment along with the special use site plan and design review permit for the same co-working and retail space use at the property. In 2021, when the original application was filed, co-working was included among the various professional uses, but it was prohibited to be within the storefront. So in that text amendment previously, and it was approved, as I mentioned, so co-working is allowed on the first floor, granted that there is a retail use in the storefront with an average of 25 feet is the requirement currently. This is just to give you kind of an overview of the zoning map in this area. So all the businesses surrounding it are in the C1 CR district. And this area of downtown, the purpose of the C1 district is to provide for the development and maintenance of a concentrated pedestrian-oriented commercial shopping center with special provisions protecting the core of that district, which is in red, which the subject property is located in. And kind of the purpose of that is to maintain the retail environment at the storefront level, at the street front level, sorry. And like I mentioned as well, the zoning code generally limits any type of office use in the storefront, which is why the text amendment was applied and approved for having a retail component in the storefront. So the applicant is proposing a co-working space called Brick and Mortar. This is just a screen grab from their website. The business model proposed by the applicant includes a co-working facility on the first and second floor and a retail area portion in the first floor. So Brick and Mortar is a co-working facility, and people can purchase hourly passes, daily passes, or a membership, just like many other co-working facilities. So you can purchase a pass, go in and use the office for as long as you want. In that proposed facility, the first and second floor will be co-working. So there will be about 15, offices, different size meeting rooms, which I'll show in the site plan coming up, and then as well as a retail component, which is a little different than last time. Last time, a different business called Five and Dime was proposed. It was more of a convenience store model. And this round, it is the BOA. It's acai bowls. This restaurant has been in many farmers markets around the region, but this would be their first storefront location. And this would be facing the street. And it looks like acai bowls will be sold, and a little point that I'll add now, but I can touch on it later when I show the site plan, is that the retail space is a bit different than last time, which I'll show. But as I mentioned, the applicants did apply for something similar in 2021. And so I decided we wanted to highlight the differences here. In 2021, the co-working space was about 6,740 square feet total. Now it's about 100 feet difference versus co-working and retail space. And that's because they proposed a smaller retail space this time, 417 square feet, versus previously it was proposed to be 500 square feet roughly. Another difference is the parking decal request. They're requesting a little bit less decals this time. And also in terms of the design review, the facade is a bit different. Previously, they proposed to reconfigure it structurally. And this round, they're keeping the structure and proposing to change the windows and add a walk-up window this round for the retail space. And just to highlight the difference in co-working space, or co-working square footage in the village, during this initial proposal, there was about 4,000 square feet, and now existing today, there's 13,874 square feet of co-working, so that's about a 70% increase, 77% increase. And then with brick and mortar, it would be about 20,000 square feet. Just to highlight what they proposed previously, this is just a picture of the former site plan. The big difference is the plan highlighted an open concept with a retractable wall, which allowed for the retail and the co-working space to be combined into one. Previously, the applicants mentioned they were interested in different special events, so this retractable wall would enable the first floor to kind of have an open concept. This is the proposed site plan. Also, I included one in the packets as well. The layout has changed a bit. So on each floor, there's a larger cafe. This cafe isn't selling anything necessarily. It's water, kombucha on tap, coffee, and just a place for people to eat and drink. And then the retail space specifically looks a bit different. If you can see it here on the screen or in your packets, the retail space is a little bit more closed off than last time. There's a wall and a conference room in between the rest of the co-working in the back. And then, as I mentioned, there is a grab-and-go window now being proposed. And I think the main difference is with that grab-and-go, this restaurant will be more, people will be able to come in, pick up orders, order online, versus the convenience store aspect where people would be going in and shopping for items. Okay, just looking at the facade, this is the proposed facade. They are proposing to change the existing copper roof to a black metal roof. Changing the windows, like I said, existing, they're kind of squares in the window. That might be a bad way to explain it, but the windows are now clear, and then the walk-up window. But nothing is being proposed to change the structure of the facade, which is different from the former proposal. So I just put them side by side to kind of give an idea of the differences. But it seems to be same color scheme with the black. So as I mentioned, the applicant is requesting special use approval, site plan approval, and design review approval to operate the co-working facility with a retail component. Looking at the special use standards specifically, and as noted on the staff report on page 9, the co-working in La Grange, like I mentioned, looks a lot different now than it did. And to kind of highlight that, we put together just a very simple map that highlights where the two other co-working facilities are in relation to the subject property, which is in red there. And so like I mentioned, in 2021, when they applied, The only other co-working facility was on the second floor of 21 South La Grange Road, which is the yellow one right there. It's hard to kind of point here, but that was the 4,000 square feet. And then since then, Mission Co-working and 505 Suites have joined La Grange and kind of increased that square footage. And 15 West Harris is where the other Mission Co-working, which is now Enclave, that's where it's located, and it's about 240 square feet from the property. And then 505 Suites is down south on La Grange Road and is about 6 blocks. And then the Sweet Spot, which is the one that was there previously, it's pretty close as well, about 200 feet from the property.
The other properties that are within the CBD there, are they second floor properties?
Yes. Yep. So the Sweet Spot is on the second floor, and Enclave is the second and third floor of that. And then below them are retail uses on the first floor. Okay. And then also, as mentioned, in terms of site plan approval, the site plan does look a little bit different than last time. The standards for the site plan approval align pretty closely with the special use standards as highlighted in the report. And these standards kind of ensure that the proposal won't have any undue adverse impacts on the adjacent properties, the character of the area, or public health and safety. And then in terms of the design review standards for approval, the DRC usually handles these, but whenever there is also a special use requested, the Plan Commission obviously hears these. So as a courtesy, we reached out to the DRC to solicit any feedback, and that's noted in the staff report on page 10. So some outstanding questions that we had kind of revolve around the customer transportation mix and the average occupancy of the facility during daytime and evening. These were kind of similar to questions from the last proposal as well. And looking to see where customers using the facility would park, specifically since it is a 24-hour facility between 2 and 6 a.m. Because parking in the village lots and on the streets is generally prohibited at that time. And then, as always, the Plan Commission has a number of options in recommending approval or denial of the requested special use site plan approval and design review permit. You can approve as presented for substantial conformity with all provisions of the zoning code and all other applicable federal, state, and village codes and regulations and ordinances. Approval is allowed with modifications. So last time, as highlighted on the screen, there were a few conditions with approval. One of them was the co-working in conjunction with the convenience store is allowed, granted that they are owned by the same entity. And this was one of the conditions approved last time. So that's just up there in case the Plan Commission would like to use those conditions or discuss any further. And then also the last option would be to deny the application as presented for failure to be in substantial conformity with the provisions of the zoning code and village codes. And that's about it.
Commissioners, questions for staff at this point?
I have a question. So, regarding the site plan, the ordinance that was passed, it says the first 25 feet have to be retail. Is it still 25 feet of retail? I couldn't quite tell.
Yeah, so, yep, the applicant is proposing about the average is at 25. I think it's just right at the 25 though.
In the ordinance that was passed in 2021, there was also this concept of 12 events required, but not less than 24. Can you touch on that a little bit? Because that wasn't really covered in the report, and I want to understand, and maybe it's just my own kind of memory, what that was about and whether or not that is something that's still on the table here, and should we be talking about that? Because it also wasn't part of the staff kind of summary.
Yeah, so in terms of the special events, the applicants didn't provide any additional details on the plans for special events. They did mention that events might be held from time to time, but no details on how many or when those would be were provided to us.
Just since I was here in 2021, to just add to that, if you could go back one slide to show the previously approved site plan, you can see how as Roya was talking about during her presentation, the garage door, it was like a garage door style at the back side of the retail space, was intended to be left open when they would have these events, and then all of that more open co-working area behind it could become usable as part of these retail events that would happen to facilitate the small and startup brands that they were intending to feature within the convenience store that was part of the proposal in 2021.
So the idea that, because the language in this ordinance that events must be hosted 12 times a year, but not more than 24 without approval. So again, so the idea is because that was tailored more to the convenience store, that's not.
It was part of the retail offerings of the special use package. Yep.
And I know you raised a question in the staff report about parking. I'd like to understand a little bit more about what options are on the table for overnight parking, especially during the hours when 2 and 6, when village parking is not allowed.
So currently the village has no public parking that would be available for users of their facility between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m.
Okay. Have they proposed any solutions or alternatives to this for any of their occupants during that time?
I think that's something we would need to ask them during their presentation.
Could you expound on, talk about 25 or 35 decals? What does that lend to the applicant?
So in the last proposal, they requested 35 decals, parking decals, and they would hand out those decals to customers of the co-working space. This round, they decided to go with a little bit less, 25, and those decals would be, like I said, handed out by them. Either a customer purchases it from them, but that would have to be authorized by the village board to allow to use those decals, because if I'm not wrong, the decals are.
So that they can purchase the decals just like any other business in the central business district. They would be purchasing them and distributing them amongst their customers because they're not individually the users of the co-working, or not licensed businesses in La Grange. So Brick and Mortar would be purchasing the decals and distributing them, allocating them as appropriate. The CBD employee decal allows employees in the central business district to park within designated areas without time limits. So, for example, in the parking garage, they can park and not be subject to the 4-hour time limit. It does not exempt them from the no overnight parking ban, though, which is where the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. thing comes in.
Do the other co-working spaces?
Can we talk into mics? Sorry, Jeff.
Do the other co-working spaces have overnight office options that are already in the village? Do we know?
I don't have an answer for that.
I mentioned in here that they work.
The other two are 24 hours.
At least one of them.
Okay, I was just wondering if we had heard of any parking issues or security or safety issues. Okay.
In the past, we had the discussion about access and control of access at other hours. And I'm looking at the plan, and I confess to be somewhat lost as to how control can be totally separated so that people coming in
So there is
have to go through the retail space.
Sure. So if you look on the floor plan for the current proposal, you can see the separate dedicated entrance to the south for the co-working space.
Yeah, but what happens up here? goes up or it goes back to a vestibule there.
Right, so from that vestibule, that door that enters to the retail area would presumably be locked, and they would not be able to enter the retail space.
Those are all separately controlled and logged. I think before we even had a discussion, there would be a record of entry to Nixon. Maybe thinking of
I
something
don't
else.
recall that, but we did, excuse me. We did talk about how the key cards would work for the users of the space for after hours access.
Logging,
And it would be like a key fob type system.
okay.
Questions for staff?
And Sherry, I don't know if you looked at the prior, it's like minutes or file, or if it's just on your, going in, back into your memory from 2021. Can you tap into, or explain a little bit more of the analysis either with this commission or with the board about why the degree of importance was placed on the co-ownership between retail and the co-working?
Sure. I think my recollection was that there were concerns that because the retail space was such a small overall percentage of the building and wasn't the primary line of business for the property owner, that there may not be as much incentive to be really proactive in making sure that retail space remained open and viable. If the current tenant, if they rented it and the current tenant left, that it might sit vacant. And then the village would have limited enforcement opportunities to ensure that space were activated.
Are there any other acai-based stores in downtown district?
I'm sorry?
The focus of this retail is this acai,
Oh, acai. There is, so Bonita Bowls is in permit now on Calendar Avenue, and they do acai bowls.
so there will be a competitor opening as well, sure.
And I don't know if some of our other smoothie places do acai bowls or not.
Do we have other
Mark, right?
examples in the village where a tenant or a property owner has satisfied its retail space requirement by having a non-owned retailer come in and satisfy that portion of the obligation?
I can't think of any. Most of our uses that are service uses that require a minimum retail component, it's all that business. So our personal physical fitness uses in the downtown, for example, they have retail product that they sell in the front 25 feet of that space, but it's all their business.
And I think we were talking briefly about the text amendment, which was originally part of the approval. Does the text amendment continue to run?
Yeah, so that has been an amendment to the code, so it doesn't change, it doesn't expire.
Okay, so it was essentially enabling for that use.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then maybe this is better for the applicant to ask, but I'm just trying to make sure I understand the sequence of events. So it was approved. We had the text amendment and the special use was approved. Then a period of time went by and the property was purchased. Then a period of time went by and demolition began. Then a period of time went by and another request for changes was submitted. Then some time went by that was approved. Then some time went by, nothing was done. And then, so what, I'm just trying, so is that, and then, so it's been 3 years of just this. And now we get an application that has additional changes to what was approved even back at the last approval. Is that right? Okay.
Yes, that timeline's right, yeah.
Okay.
But we consider this just wholly new. This just has nothing to do with the old one.
It is a new application that should stand on its own merits. I think we're providing context of the prior approval in that it's the considerations of the Plan Commission from 3 years ago for the same property.
That's a good point, because let's separate the two. The zoning code amendment approved co-working in conjunction with retail sales, with two conditions. 25 feet retail in the front, and the use must not be located within 600 feet of any other co-working in conjunction with retail sales fronting on the same street. That's the code amendment. So are we closer than 600 feet now with new co-working spaces since this has been passed?
So the other uses are not co-working with retail sales as a special use, they are co-working as a permitted use on the second floor.
On the second floor. So
That's the
wouldn't we-
distinction,
Okay, so
where
we
it's
wouldn't
not
be
a
violating
violation.
that condition with this then second component, which is now the new special use permit that we'd be reviewing today.
Right,
Okay,
to be evaluated against the standards for special uses.
thank you.
More questions for staff?
Yeah, one. Are there other examples in the village with a walk-up retail window?
Not that I'm aware of.
There's no other questions. I guess at this point, I'm sure the applicant has a presentation for us or to answer some questions. At this point, I guess I'd like to, anyone who's going to speak, I need to swear you in. So if you're about to present, you raise your right hand. A couple, 3, 4. Okay, do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Like I said, the applicant is here. Who's the applicant? I'd like to give us a little presentation, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of questions.
Can you also press the button and turn the mic on so it turns green? There you go, thank you.
Perfect. Thanks for having me again. We are thrilled to be back and excited for the path forward. I guess the history, just to clear it up, in 21 when we were here, we were going through initially to be able to secure the real estate construction financing to happen thereafter, following the interior demo to be able to ultimately generate the plans, to then generate the construction budget, to then apply for the full permit and move forward. During that window, interest rates doubled and threw our plans out of whack, right? So those went sideways. So that is what caused the delay. The benefit is that we've learned significantly more about what people in general want out of co-working. Just to give you, so we share this often, co-working generally is just in the eye of the beholder. Co-working to some means something different to others. Have you guys worked out of co-working before? Okay, where have you worked out of?
I've done some co-working space downtown at somewhere, some of the spaces full market that's just, open plan, all the different little glass offices or completely open community tables.
Absolutely. It's actually where we got our start. Myself and my business partner, he worked out of 1871, and then we worked out of full market. Aberdeen and Kinsey is where we initially got started. And we worked out of one where it was on one level, second floor, kind of had to walk around. There's an odd way to get into a building, and we figured it out and worked there. We also, in comparison, worked out of one where it was first floor, you literally walk in, and it was a breeze for you, it was a breeze for your guests, it eliminated a lot of the red tape, and so for us, the first floor is important, and it's been important for all the other locations because of the convenience that it offers our folks, for the accessibility, and then also when it comes to having guests there and the on-demand nature. So when I guess I'll go into services just to help you understand. So the service, there's day passes. So we're in Park Ridge, Deerfield, and Glen Ellen. And so you could literally go on your phone right now, purchase a day pass, and then you'll receive electronic access along with wayfinding instructions, and you can enter the space via an app. And you're in, and you can sit wherever you'd like and work, and you can feel secure because there's video surveillance throughout the entire space. We monitor that in the back office. We know who's there, what time they checked in, etc. So there's day passes. There's also work booths that offer hourly office. So if you say, hey, I need an office, I'm walking the street, I need an office for a few hours, you can go and book that directly through the app, through your portal, and then gain access. Same thing with meetings. So you don't have to be a member. You can just on demand, right? So if we wanted to, we could host this meeting at Brick and Mortar, just schedule on the public calendar. Everyone here would then receive their electronic access and can enter and enjoy the meeting space. So just to give you an idea of the services that are provided. There's that. There's also memberships. So if you said, hey, I wanted to work there more frequently, then you start to get better pricing versus the $25 per day. And then there's obviously private offices as well. What we've seen, in Park Ridge being the oldest of our locations now at 4 years, what we've seen is this really becomes a business hub for the community. So this is where folks are having their, distinction-wise, our co-working spaces are really catered towards the individual and collaboration, right? And so that's what our belief, doesn't mean that's how every co-working space operates, but our belief is that there is a massive need in these communities for people that want to get out of their house and go work someplace, and there's going to be a distinction between, and there already is, between cafes and coffee shops versus co-working or your workplace. And so our belief is that there's, similar to how there's gym memberships, your Netflix memberships, people have a co-working membership, and they're going to utilize that how they need. As a good example is we're in Glen Ellen, we're partnered with Blackberry Market because they're literally our next door neighbor. They have people who sit there on a daily basis that Blackberry would prefer to have those folks in co-working. So what they're doing is they're actually delivering. So on their website, hopefully tomorrow it'll be active. On their website, it's going to read, right? There'll be an option if you wanted to deliver to Brick and Mortar, you select that, and then there's a drop zone in Brick and Mortar where their folks will have access to be able to deliver the person's food and enjoy. The reason I bring that up, I guess coincidentally today, there was literally a gentleman, his name's Dave. Dave stopped in today at Brick and Mortar Glen Ellen. He was at Blackberry and he said, man, I love Blackberry. Just like everybody in the community. It's amazing, same thing here. And he said, but I can't work there. And he said, I'm so glad that you guys opened. He said, I think what you've done with the place is beautiful. I've always really liked this building. And we toured him through, and Dave said, you know what I need? Dave's in tech. He said, I'm good at home, but I really need to get out a couple days a week. And so he's grabbing a part-time membership, right? We also have folks who, same thing, right? So they're utilizing different memberships. So that's just one example. Holistically, coming back to La Grange, the different co-working spaces in La Grange are just that, right? They're different from our service offering. Obviously, we wouldn't be pursuing this if we thought that the competitors in the space were, if there wasn't room for us and there wasn't an opportunity for us to really serve the community here. When we tell people that we're coming here, there's a pretty large circumference of people that are excited for Brick and Mortar La Grange to be able to utilize it. The parking from 2 to 6 a.m., I guess the hurdle and how we overcame that last time was it's up to members, right? If people want to walk to the space and they want to do that, great. If they want to figure out their own parking, great, it's up to them. Is that an absolute need that we're open 24/7? All the other spaces are, and technically most offices are. People just choose not to use them in that way. The people that we see that do wind up working in off hours would be third shift. So we have people who work for hospitals, and then they get off. She would get off, and she's a book writer, and so she would come in after a shift, and that's her quiet place to be able to write. We also would see accountants during tax season, and then we would also see folks in logistics who are communicating overseas. Their days start very early and end very early, so that's who's there. We do have cleaning crews that's going through there on a daily basis, taking care of everything. So, and we have folks on site. And then the reason for the partnership adjustment is that BOA with their, and these are the guys with Eatery and Brian, with BOA, they have a tremendous product. I have a passion for juice and smoothies and acai and healthy eating. It's a passion, not a livelihood for me. These guys, they were at 11 different farmers markets this past year and got invited by La Grange to La Grange's farmers market for this upcoming year. So La Grange, as a farmers market, is very excited to have them. And so, maybe I'll bore you with a quick story. So I met them at the Park Ridge Farmers Market. I go there every Saturday. I have 3 girls, 9, 7, and 2, and they absolutely love it. They go to the acai truck literally at 7 a.m. They're so excited. What's interesting is that, so they got their acai the first time, and then we ran into BOA and got acai bowls, myself and my wife. The girls tried it, and they loved it, which was interesting. Next week, they skipped the acai truck and went to BOA, and then every week thereupon, we're pursuing that. I thought, man, these guys, their acai is Brazilian organic acai. That's where the name comes from. And so this is organic acai from Brazil, which is very unique compared to any other acai. So it's not going to, it's the same name, but in terms of actually the product and the presentation, very different flavor. And so anyways, we got to chatting, and I asked them how many locations they were at. I thought they were going to say 2 or 3. I was stunned that they said 11. I said, I think you guys are onto something. I said, where's your largest demographics, and where are you most successful? Where are the people coming from? And the western suburbs was what was shared. And I said, well, that's amazing. Let me tell you about what we're doing in La Grange. And they're excited for a storefront. They're excited for the opportunity to be able to partner. We're excited to be able to have a concept that is, when I say quiet in nature, there's not espresso machines blaring in the background, smoothie makers, etc. Right? So it's a very synergistic concept. They have the ideas that they can do birthday parties in terms of acai building with kids, and they can reserve brick and mortar rooms. That's why in the floor plan, there's a conference room that has a garage door that's attached to their space, so they can utilize that. We also want to be able to offer that to our members. We will have that set up on a recurring basis. We want to be able to offer that on demand to meetings. And then the other component is we're doing the exact same, what I just mentioned there, with BlackBerry in Glen Ellen, and we'll be doing the same thing with them in La Grange, where, so let's say you folks booked a meeting, you receive menus with the opportunity to just book that through your portal, order that through your portal, and have it delivered at your desired time. And so, at the end of the day, we've got Brick and Mortar is really becoming a business hub for these different cities. We're also going into Arlington Heights and Libertyville next, so that's where the building is continuing, the construction is continuing. And we're excited to add La Grange to that as well.
Well, thanks. So stay there. I'm sure we'll have questions. Sure. We have many legal eagles up here.
Sure.
But explain to me what the agreement with Bo would be as far as
concern is that the retail outlet is there, and if they don't make it, then what do we have? Just expound on that.
That's fair. We're prepared to put a joint venture together for this location in the spirit of helping us align on this point.
So there'd be some kind of ownership.
Correct.
Legal staff, does that make sense to anyone? Jeff, Julie? Sure. Yeah.
If I may, the package that the staff presented said, they gave us a lot of information. One of the things that they said is what they didn't have a chance to develop with you, which is our opportunity now. 2 points that they indicated. One is, I guess absent consideration of the previous inertia of the site, is did you consider at all any other location in La Grange? Or was this basically where you felt that you were staying?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so we obviously made the investment into purchasing the real estate because we believe in the high profile nature of the location. The benefit of our locations for our members and what they've come to really enjoy is that they're in the center of town. They're in Main on Main, right? A lot of the people that are working at the spaces are accustomed to Fulton Market as a good example, right? That's where they're accustomed to working in River North, West Loop, etc., downtown Chicago. And so, but they're not looking to travel there, at least not every day. And so, but they enjoy that quote unquote hustle and bustle, and well, probably equally or more important, the conveniences that are associated with those locations. And for all of those reasons, plus just the overall footprint, it wound up working out really well for us.
Okay. The other point was specifically to, instead of dealing with a special use, is to configure the operation as by right with the work upstairs and a retail on the first floor is clear cut. Both of those operations are by right and would go through. Did you consider that at all?
For this specific
location is to have solely retail on the first floor and the remainder of your operation only on the second floor.
Yeah. Generally speaking, our opportunity exists because retailers and restaurants are downsizing. And so for us, because of that downsizing, our concept fits really well into those spaces that are otherwise sitting dormant. And in all of our other special use instances, we've been approved at Glen Ellen, Libertyville, Park Ridge, Deerfield, etc., to be able to push brick and mortar all the way to the storefront. In this, we were hopeful that we'd be able to do the same. This is different in terms of the ask, but we're obviously very amenable to making it work. And for what it's worth, we're actually excited because this partnership is pretty good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
In the spirit of being a good neighbor, I'm just curious, was the demolition of the interior work begun without a permit, just an error and oversight on the team's part?
It was.
Sure.
I have a couple questions. So obviously the landscape has changed in the last few years. So now we're looking at 20,000 square feet of co-working space. Have you done a new market study, or do you have any idea as to what the current usage is in the village with the vacancies at the other areas, and is there still availability market for you?
It's a great question. So I'll go through each location. So the Sweet Spot, which is across the street, it's more professional development. In fact, at our initial hearing, the lady who owns Sweet Spot, she came previously to the meeting, we even conversed, and she was an advocate for us opening. She thought that what we're offering is different from what she's offering, and she thought it was a good fit for the city. The one that's further west, is it
505 Suites.
505 Suites? 505 Suites is much more for larger companies versus individuals, right? In terms of, unless anything changed, I don't believe they're offering day passes, on-demand meeting rooms. It's not open to everyone. And then the Mission Co-working that's around the corner, to be fair, I haven't been there. I haven't seen enough inside it to understand exactly what they're offering. That being said, in each of our other locations, there are competitors, right? So in Glen Ellen, there's a co-working spot called Enclave that's just down the street, and we're able to coexist. Park Ridge probably has the most competition. There's 2 Reguses within walking distance, a third by O'Hare, and you have all Chicago to contend with, and it's going extremely well. Deerfield, there's Regis as well, and then there's a couple others further north. Again, for us, that's why. So we believe there's going to be a distinction in co-working, right? We believe we're that premium brand of co-working, where it's fast location, high aesthetic, high touch, and high tech.
So one more question about the retail side of it. With the walk-up window, I think it was mentioned we don't have any in La Grange. Can you give us an idea about how that's going to work? Is there going to be some outdoor seating? We don't want to block the sidewalk right there. It's a very busy street, so we don't want people, hanging around waiting for their orders and getting pushed into traffic. So can you give us an idea about how that's going to work?
Yeah, of course. Premise for it is it's fun. That's really the premise. And it also is extremely functional, allows for 2 service areas. And it also, with them coming from 11 different farmers markets, this is how people are accustomed to ordering. And it's really taken shape in terms of, because there's a bit of a few minutes, right, for that acai bowl to be made for you. And so it winds up, people are mingling and having conversations. When it comes to the seating, it would be in conjunction, obviously, with the city and in the designated location that's off the sidewalk and closer to the street. So the walk-up window is, there's examples of it at Bombo Bar downtown and some other places downtown that, again, it's fun, it creates community, and that was the inspiration for it.
Questions?
Is this the time we can talk about the design changes as well? Yeah.
Easier.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about the facade changes, the painting of the brick, and the plans that the team has for the aesthetic component?
Sure. So the aesthetic component, in terms of the painting, is the same as it was previously. So the colors are white and black, and so being able to portray that on the building.
The same as the previous application.
Correct.
So it's painting the brick.
Painting the brick.
What is the brick treated now?
Good question.
Is it just face brick?
Treated.
It's like a painting. Was it painted red? I don't even know. I think it was.
Not the majority of it. Yeah.
And then the awning, the copper awning, you're thinking of painting that black.
Black.
Was there a reason not to keep it the original patina color, just as the overall aesthetic.
Yeah, it's cohesiveness with the overall aesthetic.
Does that align with your marketing, your branding, rather, of your other locations? Is that your color concept? Trying to tie it all together?
Ideally, where possible, right, do feel as a limestone facade, so you can't make that. Park Ridge does have, it's actually the oldest building in Park Ridge. It was built in 1865. It was the first, everything. It was the first post office, first school, etc. And most recently, it was before us, it was an Italian restaurant, so it was pink. For its worth, my daughters wanted us to keep it. They thought we were doing a disservice to it. But we did paint that the same white color with the black accents. That's turned out really nice.
And the team's committed to keeping up with the painting of the brick and the operations and maintenance of the facade and all of that comes along with these changes?
Yes. Yeah, we're familiar with this. Totally understand.
Could you give me a sense of usage throughout the day? You know, our concern, a lot of people have concerns about the late nights and the traffic late night. I'm a little bit more concerned about how many people are utilizing the space during midday, which isn't so bad, but then during the dining hours and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I think they said there's 70 spaces altogether. Does that make sense?
70 spaces.
Chairs.
You know,
Chairs.
camera would-
Oh, cheers.
Yeah.
Chairs, okay.
Mhm.
So in theory, you can have 70.
Conceptually.
But in reality, you got spin it out.
Reality is probably going to range between, a few people to upwards of plus or minus 40 to 50. And really, those are when the meeting rooms are going to be booked. And it ebbs and flows through the day, right? It's more like a gym in terms of you're going to have your busier times, your slower times, what's worked out well in a lot of these communities. And the reason that the surrounding businesses really appreciate us is that it becomes an amenity for the community that they utilize and then frequent the community, right? So we're not trying to be a restaurant, right? And we allow folks to bring in any type of food for meetings, for their daily. So the restaurants, grocery stores, gyms have really seen an uptick in their business by way of us being in there, whether it's for lunch or happy hour, etc. The majority, I will say this, the majority of usage is done during daytime hours.
And then nighttime, when people are concerned about it, after 10, a couple people?
A quarter, maybe. A couple people a quarter. It's not a lot. It's the ability to have it when people, right, when they need it. But it's great.
Okay. Anyone else? Sure.
So just so I'm clear, is the applicant the owner of the building?
Yes.
And then is the operator of the space a different entity? Like, is it going to be I'm trying to figure out who the JV would be with this. Is 30 La Grange LLC seems like it's probably like the owner of the property.
That's correct.
And then Brick and Mortar is going to be the tenant?
That's correct.
And then, so who would the JV be? Who are the parties to the JV?
So it hasn't been created yet.
Who is proposed to be the parties to
It would be with
I guess I'm trying to understand, so I just looked at the conditions for the special use last time was retail sales required.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's achieved with BOA. And then it also said, though, that if the convenience store ceases to operate, co-working operations must also cease. Is that still a condition that is agreed upon? Or are you seeking to accomplish that with the JV, or what? Because then there's identities of ownership was the next condition. So I'm just trying to understand what the JV accomplishes. You know, if BOA, even with the JV, I suppose BOA could cease operations.
just like with the convenience store, if it's unsuccessful, what happens in that situation? It just continues.
the last condition, the last approval, unless I'm misreading this, it said that the co-working space had to cease operations as well. Right, and then, right, so I guess I was just trying to understand, are you seeking to still comply with that or not comply with that?
Is that within the text amendment, or that's?
That's in the special use permit. The prior special use permit. That's expired. So,
Yeah.
because there's there were 6 conditions here, and I'm just trying to figure out which ones are still in play and which ones you're seeking not to have apply. So like, for instance, the emergency response button, is that still part of the plan? Then convenience store products, so I assume the idea is that BOA has fully stocked and is open from, I think it was in the application, I don't know that we had specific hours, but like the events, is that no longer a condition that you're seeking to have?
Yeah, so the events can be booked, right? And then we also seek to have community events. If we're going to align on and commit to a number of events, that's not an aspect that we would feel comfortable confirming. But there are events that do take place at the different spaces, from makers markets to other types of events that we've had at other locations.
Right, and then here it said the convenience store would be open from 8 a.m. to 9, but I think I saw somewhere that BOA would be maybe close at 5 or something.
8 to 5, and 9 to 5 on Sunday.
9 to 5. Okay. All right, so I'm just trying to make sure I get a good picture of what.
BOA does want to align with any community events, to be able to later, obviously, to serve those events.
Right, but you don't want to have, the prior, you said at least 12 each year, but no more than 24. You don't want that to be a part of it.
Correct.
Okay. No commitment to any events.
So just to,
But you could have events.
we could have events, and plan on having events.
Okay.
And when we're saying events, these are business events that are seminar-esque or new product-esque. As an example, in Glen Ellen, there's a company called Glen Ellen Coffee Company. She does a tremendous job. She flew to Guatemala, sourced all this great coffee. I don't know if people watch this. This isn't a plug for her, but hopefully she appreciates it. Maybe she gets some business. But she has set up shop at Glen Ellen to be able to do sampling, right? And she wants to be able to get her brand out there. And so 2 Saturdays ago, she set up at Brick and Mortar Glen Ellen, went out on social media. She was getting samples. We were doing tours. It was great. This is also happening on Thursday. This Thursday at 9 a.m. You all are more than welcome to come by and experience it. It'll be from 9 to 11:30. So you can come in, you have the sample, and if you want to enjoy the space, you can. Meet some people, just be able to get the word out. She typically had done a lot of this at different locations, and now that she has Brick and Mortar, she's doing it there. So that would be an example of the type of events we'd be looking to do.
Continue on with that. Let's say, I buy a day pass. Can I invite a bunch of people over for an event?
Not how that would work, no.
How would it work?
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah, so a lot of times there's collaboration, right? So if that's your intent, we're having a conversation, we're setting it up, we're gonna help you promote it, you're gonna promote it, etc. Yeah, if you try to come in with multiple people, just we would be there and there would be a conversation.
Even if I just have a few hour pass, but my buddies with me, no big deal. He just comes in.
Yeah, as a guest, you sign in, and then he's in our document. He's your responsibility. That's how that would work. If he's a guest, great. Similar to having a guest at your office. If that guest shows up the next day, probably not a guest, and we should figure out some sort of membership. And the cameras, all of it is being watched by our back office. So And then there are other arenas if and when it does take place.
Other questions?
And you're comfortable with the condition that was in the prior as well about the emergency button for the direct link to the police department?
Yes.
Okay. And then I want to just touch on something just so we have clarity. This gets back to what Commissioner Schwartz was talking about, which is that anytime the convenience store ceases to operate, co-working operations must also cease. We understand that obviously we as Village are a little different than Glen Ellen and Park Ridge and others, that we require this retail component to our downtown. So we acknowledge that's different, but that's in some ways what makes us who we are. So I just want to make sure that you understand that that's what we're talking about here as a component, that in some degrees that's part of the risk, I think, and that's part of the justification or reasoning behind the kind of joint ownership a little bit between you and BOA, that you're taking the risk a little bit that if something happens with them, then it's going to be incumbent upon you to make sure you're either refilling that space with another retailer that then gets approved by the village, or else for the time being, while they're not, that's going to have to be you shutting down operations until you put somebody else in place. So I just want you to understand that that's what that meant. And not that you didn't know that, I just want to be clear for us and for you, that's something that is still what we're talking about.
Understood.
Okay.
And real quick, while we're on the subject, you never stated your name out loud for the record, so if you could just state it. So.
I did write it.
I know.
Yes.
Thank you. I saw you write it, but thank you.
Okay, it seems like we've run low on questions. I think we have a couple more people who would like to say something from these. You're good? Yeah, sure. We may call you back. Please.
Good evening. My name is Michael Healy, Healy. I'll sign in here in a moment. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I'm a La Grange resident. I live down the street 5 blocks on South La Grange Road with my 3 daughters and my wife. The creepy castle that's been there since the 1800s, that's us. We enjoy walking down to the city for a variety of things, including Upbeat on Burlington that serves acai bowls, Red Mango next to Milk Money that serves acai bowls, as well as the other ice cream places, restaurants, Old Monks, New Mana, 1416. We love it all. And I truly believe that more retail is better for La Grange than office space. And it's a family place. It's where families come downtown. There's 20,000 people who live just in this general area, most of them families. And I'm not going to speak for them, but I personally don't want to see more office space. Why we have these ordinances and laws in place is to keep the vibrant community that we have and family friendly. It's a destination for residents to come and shop. The more retail we have, the less likely people are to go to Hinsdale or Westmont and spend their money. When we come down and do our shopping locally at local businesses, we also stop at the restaurants and spend our money. We're not going to be using a co-working space. So I've had a very busy day. I went to the Village Hall today. I've been here before. I've had ideas of how small businesses to start in the community before, but there are ordinances and rules that I've had to abide by that have stopped me short. Specifically, when you serve liquor, you have to have food. So I've altered my business plans in order to meet those requirements and play by the rules. I've had the opportunity to meet the development team today, specifically Charity, and I was given a lot of information. I spent my day on the Village website, learning as much as I could, and took the opportunity, after seeing the posting downstairs that there was going to be this special session tonight, to go and tour the new co-working space. So, first thing, other than retail that I want to discuss is, I don't think we need more office space. Enclave and the Sweet Spot had more than enough for people who want to do co-working. I would like to see, in full disclosure, as someone looking to open a small business down here, more opportunities to sell things directly to consumers, for people to walk in and out on the weekdays and when we have the special walks and when we have the community events. while a co-working place might be open to everybody, it's not open to families. It's not open to people who don't work. It's not open to the service industry. It's not open to everyone. It really is a target demographic, and that target demographic will be served using some of the most prime retail positions, buildings we have in this community. Nixon's, my former favorite restaurant because of the chicken sandwich, is no more. And I would be lying to the board if I didn't myself look at that place to open up a small business that I want to, the entire first floor. I believe that what Brick and Mortar is asking can be accomplished by using the second floor, much which was required from my understanding of Enclave and the Sweet Spot, which are their direct competitors. And I bring it back to that and following the rules and reading the regulations that are necessary to do business and have the privilege to do here since it's such a wonderful town, that if we required one business to follow the rules, we shouldn't make exceptions for other ones. If the co-working places here had to follow the rules and open their business, it's anti-competitive and against free market to just let another company come in and skirt the rules just so that because they want to have that prime position. Less than 500 feet of retail space is not a lot of retail space. Yeah, there's acai bowls, but you can barely fit shelving in there to have any sort of retail. Whereas if you were to put a wine and cheese shop in there, or a clothing shop, or anything that a greater percentage of the population can use, that's that much more revenue pumping through this community. That's another location that people come from Westmont and Hinsdale and Countryside and Brookfield and La Grange Park to use. A co-working space, as pretty as we want to make it, is just an office building that's going to be empty on the weekends, that's going to look like a vacant property that people wish was Nixon's, they wish was a restaurant, they wish they could go into and check it out. So I'm asking you guys to please today to keep downtown La Grange with retail front. The businesses on the first floor dedicated to retail, to give small business owners like myself the same fair shake at doing things by the rules that's requested of everyone who does business in the city, and not to grant the special exception. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Good evening, Commissioners. Tom Brissetta on behalf of the Enclave Co-working, which is taking the space, or has taken the space of the Mission co-working space on 15 West Harris. I had an opportunity to read the staff memorandum, and I read the code division. I think it's from section 14 of the La Grange zoning code, and I just wanted to raise an objection based on what I saw in there. As the Commission knows, section 14 requires that a three-pronged analysis be conducted on a special use permit application. The three prongs, of course, are an analysis of the public benefit, an analysis of alternative spaces, opportunities, and an analysis of the mitigation of an adverse impact. So what I've been focusing on is solely that first prong, which is the analysis of the public benefit. I noticed in the staff memorandum as well as in the code that the public benefit analysis contains kind of a few subparts. One of the words that was mentioned, for example, it said that the public benefit had to be necessary, desirable, and then it was also enforced the public convenience of the new space. And pausing there for a moment and just kind of, I think, correcting something that was in some of the slides. I noticed in the staff memorandum that there was I think it was a little over 17,000 square feet of co-working space in a 6-block radius. I think the slide said 13 and change. Seems like a small difference, but I think it was that there's been an addition of that almost 14,000 since the last application. So really what we're looking at is it's an application for a permission to squeeze a fourth co-working space into a 6-block radius amidst 17,000 square feet of other co-working space. And to me, using the analysis contained in the memorandum and the code, that fails the necessary desirable standard, and then also fails the public convenience standard. This location would be about 150 feet from the space on Harris, and then about 250 feet from the sweet spot, which is just north. And I, of course, had a chance to listen to Mr. Nast's presentation, which was, of course, very good. I can speak for Enclave that the offerings that we give to the public are virtually identical to what I heard. It's the same. The booking of one-off space usage is the same type of text to your phone. There's the shared office space. There's various flex hours. I also happen to know that Sweet Spot operates fairly similarly. I don't know anything about the 505, so I can't speak to that. So for those reasons, I think that the application fails the first prong of the three-prong analysis, which is that public benefit, because it fails to meet the standard of necessary, desirable, and then also the addition of public convenience.
Thank you. Commissioners, that's the end of the presentation. More questions that you've had for either staff or applicants?
So along those same lines, what interest has the village had in various businesses in terms of looking for retail space in the downtown district?
In the downtown district in general, or this property specifically?
Downtown district.
We speak with a number of people on within any given month, probably a couple businesses a week. We have limited vacancies and available spaces currently in the core of the central business district on the first floor spaces.
And this property specifically?
This property specifically, I know there was another restaurateur that was looking to purchase the property when it was acquired back in 2021. Since that time, since it's been owned by the current owners, I've spoken with an entity that wanted to purchase it, put office on the first floor and rent out put office on the second floor and rent out the first floor. And I've spoken with other retailers that were generally looking in the area and inquired about the space, but it wasn't actively available on the market. Whether that was one of the soap companies that recently was looking, one of which ended up finding space on calendar, or other restaurants that now have found other spaces.
Yeah, I see.
Sure.
In regards to just interest, we have, prior to meeting the BOA folks, we were open to offers, and today none have come in. Again, part of the reason that our business even exists is the fact that retail and restaurants are downsizing. This being a larger building, there hasn't been that interest. Just to make sure it's clear in terms of our rule following, Cherry and Roya are amazing and would definitely not let us not follow the rules. So we have followed the rules every step of the way to be able to pave our way forward into the city of La Grange. So there was, in terms of it not being fair, we followed the letter of the law here. And then just in terms of the comment in regards to Enclave, it was previously discussed, but just so it's clear that this is unique in terms of the first floor with the retail, and that's why that 600 feet does not apply. Thank you.
Commissioners, at this time, I think close the public part of this presentation. It's a little time to deliberate and discuss where we're at on this. We've kind of commingled what the old agreement was with what we have in front of us right now. We could take parts of that and bring it into what is proposed. But I guess I'd like to get your feelings in general, how you stand with the applicant as it is now.
I think the thing which raised at least common concern was the question of the ownership. And just to make certain that we're all comfortable with the construction of the ownership. As I see it, whether a joint venture is made with the right parties. If it's a joint venture among the tenants as opposed to a joint venture, the owner of both functions, that's a different matter. That the owner could be a member of both, but what is the actual structure? Apparently that hasn't been constructed.
Right. Just while we're kind of on that structure question,
Can you pull your mic down, Mr. Chairman?
would the commission want to bring in the one condition that if the retail unit closes, then the working space also closes?
I think that's a substantial component of the special use, that's what they're asking for, is to have that with the retail. So yes, I think they have to be together.
And would that mean close the first floor or close the whole operation?
I think the whole operation. Special use is to operate a, what's the language? Operate co-working space with retail. So if they don't have one or the other, they can't operate separately.
Even if they generally have right to do it on the second floor? Standard.
Oh, well. I don't know how that would.
I think the two are necessarily combined, right? If we could, I don't know that we can have like a vacant retail space. The second, the whole, it's like it's being approved as a package. And so I don't know why we would separate the two. Because, right, if the retail operations go out of business, then now what do they have? They have a special use permit to have a vacant retail space above a co-working space, right? And I don't know if that's what, I don't think that's what anybody desires on the Great Road. CBD.
I guess I'll be honest, I'm uncomfortable. The concept, the working space concept, the second floor is a no-brainer. Having such a large working space on the first floor in the middle of town with a relatively minor retail is concerning to me. I'm not sure that's the best use of the village's assets, to be honest. Does anyone else feel similar?
When you look at the things you're supposed to consider for the special use, one of them is the comprehensive plan, which we all just, worked on for the last year plus. And it specifically says that the PNS set for commercial is for retail and entertainment uses, with a pedestrian setting for new retail and entertainment uses. And this would result in a reduction of about not quite 2,400 square feet of retail space. So I'm moving.
Are we doing the job of the village board at that point? Because they passed an ordinance that allows this.
There were other nuances in what they passed back in the day.
I understand, I'm just saying, and I don't disagree with you, because I share the same concern, but I think about what the job we have on this commission. And we can be uncomfortable with that. But the village board passed an ordinance that allowed it, subject to conditions and special use permit scenarios, and that's what we're debating here. But what I'm uncomfortable about is saying, I don't like first floor co-working space in downtown, and so I don't want to do this because 4 years ago the village board said it's okay, subject to special use permit process.
So that's just it, it's the special use permit process, and so you have to consider all these different things.
Sure.
The comprehensive plan and the traffic and parking, all those other things that go along with that special use. So I think that's what we're deliberating right here is, does it meet those, what the village board said, does it meet those standards of allowing the special use? It maybe yes, maybe no.
Didn't that officially expire anyways?
What?
What
the board originally approved?
Not,
Well, not the zoning
Oh.
code amendment.
Not the
that's
text.
code amendment.
Special use permit.
It's special use permit was approved for them in 21, was what expired. But the code amendment that allowed this as a special use permit, subject to our analysis, is now codified. So we could be uncomfortable with it, but it's still in the code then. And so I'm just saying, I think that's what makes me uncomfortable to say is that we don't like it, so we're not gonna, we just don't think that this should be allowed to move forward without going through, to me, I gotta get over that in my head, because it's now been approved by the board as a special
But again,
use.
for special use, so you have to look at all the different factors within the staff report
Sure.
to determine, does this proposed use, how is it affected by the comprehensive plan, by the requirements for parking and the no undue impact and all those other things that come along with it. That's, I think, what we have to decide and then recommend to the village board, yes, we think it meets those, or no, we don't, I think it does.
Agreed.
Okay.
Comments over here? Deliberation?
Is the proposed project incrementally different enough to require, or to at least create a condition that is different than we reviewed before?
I think it's a whole new ballgame.
Agreed, it's brand new, but as Jeff mentioned here, we have the text amendment was in place. The text amendment allows essentially as long as the special use is met. We've heard someone suggest the special use may not have been met. Respect. Is one of many. So I guess, does this devolve down to more of an examination of the special use conditions and your prevailing master plan?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Glenn, because the zoning code, the text amendment does say that it's in conjunction with retail sales. So I guess it's, how do we define retail sales? In this case, it was a convenience store, which obviously is gonna have people coming in and out, whatever, selling different types of products. The new proposal is, they're providing just a couple products that may not be as, I don't know.
Is that different than an ice cream shop?
Exactly, so.
It is. There's no point A, point B all the time. I'm as confused at times about trying to draw a straight line here. Nonetheless, I think Jeff's point is more taken.
I'll play devil's advocate too, because the comprehensive plan assessment we had centered a lot around density, bringing people to the downtown, more and larger apartment buildings, and an acknowledgement that working environments have changed. There's not as many people going downtown. Now, is that changing? Yes. I'm seeing it in our own business downtown. So I don't know if that'll change in 2 years. But for now, and maybe, at least what we're seeing in our business, people coming back a lot, but it's not 5 days a week. I don't ever see it in my business, ever going back to 5 days a week. So does that mean that people are going to be looking, at least for flexibility, for a couple of days, close to where they live? I think so. The nature of downtown, and we've talked about this as businesses, has changed. As one of the presenters spoke about, this idea of more clothing shops and more restaurants. Clothing shops are, at least unless Charity tells me I'm wrong, the clothing shop idea that we used to say, we want caps and we want, that's gone. It's just not like that. You get a lot of these clothier shops to come to downtown La Grange. We've got to be a little bit more open to flexibility and diversity of what we have. The staff has been amazing to bring in incredible, diverse array of restaurants and eateries, but you have to have other. There is other for the downtown area. And so a nice, constructed, developed co-working space, I actually think, would have the feel of a retailer, would have the feel of people around and people coming here to spend money, walk around the downtown, and supporting the other businesses. I don't think it's going to look like it's a vacant, empty storefront, assuming that they're doing their job and they're filling it with people. And if they're not, well, guess what? They're out of business. But I've lived in this village now for almost 20 years, and that building has turned over more times, I think, than any other place that I can remember of other, downtown locations. So the idea that the hope, holding out hope for somebody else to go in there, it's a huge amount of space, huge. And I think it would be short-sighted to think, well, if we don't like this because we don't love co-working space, let's hold out hope for some big restaurant. Let's hold out hope for some big clothes shop. Let's hold out hope. When got an applicant, in my opinion, I understand the concerns that were voiced, but this isn't some massive exception to the rule. This was codified. So now we're doing the analysis for the special use permit. I actually think it will drive people to go and be in a building that otherwise is sitting vacant for 3+ years. That before that, Nixon's was fantastic, and I agree. One of my favorite restaurants. I hate that it went away. The best po' boy, it was great, but before that, it had turned over too. So we're talking about a use that was codified. I'd like to go through the special use conditions because I actually think that this might be something really good to drive people to give optionality for when we're increasing density in the next handful of years to downtown, an option for people to have a nice place to work and then patronize the rest of the places that are close by.
And I think I tend to agree with most of that. I think that the real condition is that we have to think about is what constitutes retail sales, and I think that's why we focused on, condition A, retail sales required, convenience store, if it ceases to operate, then all operations cease and that's kind of the one way we really keep a strong measure to make sure that, hey, you're going to keep it open. Like acai goes out of flavor, that it's going to be something else. I don't care what you bring in, but it's got to be something. Otherwise, you can't operate because it's not really retail sales, which is what the text amendment requires. And I think we tried the events. I think that was designed to just get some retail flair, maybe 12 times a year or something like that. But I don't know that I consider that as critical. But I think the retail aspect has to be open. I mean, I can't imagine like the spa place or the nail place. Like we go through all this effort to say, hey, you have to have retail, but then they can just shutter the retail part and just keep their services going on in the back. That doesn't work. That just kind of it's an interrupt. And so it just seems to me that first condition is like the key part of it. And as long as it's open during normal business hours, previously they'd agreed from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. I think they're shortening the hours a bit. But as long as it's, I think, during normal business hours, I don't know that I have a huge problem with that. And then the emergency response, it sounds like everybody agrees to that anyway, so it seems like a reasonable condition is to keep it. All right.
Obviously, Jeff and Dave want to go forward with this and build up the special use permit, so it suits us. Is that what I'm hearing? Sure.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I think co-working wasn't anyone's first choice for this location. I think we'd all love to see a restaurant, but it's been vacant for years. I think they put a thoughtful plan together. What gives me a little comfort is that they have successful models elsewhere, knowing that it's something that's being used. It's consistent with the way that work trends are going right now. I think it'll bring a new sense of vibrancy to that area of the village. I do think we should focus on the joint venture and the terms of the special use that we have here. But I am in agreement with what I'm hearing.
Sure, you get.
Yeah, I agree. I think with everything that people have said, and I think as long as we maintain that retail element and make that, if the retail doesn't work, then the whole thing doesn't work. I think then we are in compliance with the comprehensive plan and moving forward to maintain that central business district. So I would point out, though, that the fact the building's been vacant is really because of the applicant. It's not because we haven't had any, so I just want, for the record, it's, but yes, I agree that I think this is the most recent best use that we can come up with. And rather than continue to keep it vacant, I'd like to see someone go in there and actually make it work.
Commissioner Weinstein, your comment?
Do we leave the common ownership statement?
Before we get to the details of the agreement and special use, would you rather see it go forward as co-working than relatively minor retail?
Yes.
Well, given that most everyone said that's what we want to do, so let's work on what we're going to put in this special use permit, so that it satisfies us and
They need to close the public.
knows their direction. So I guess I'd like to throw the legal end. How do you guys want to work it? How would you suggest that?
Close the public hearing. No, they did already.
I'm trying to put the language that the staff has in here, just that it has to have same ownership and cannot be separately sold or rented. I think that's sufficient. I don't think we should dictate whatever.
So I don't think that's what the applicant has agreed
What's
to
that?
do.
I'm sorry?
I don't believe that's what the applicant has agreed to do in this application.
No, I get that, but.
Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
They said joint venture, that doesn't necessarily mean same ownership.
Okay, this is where we need lawyers.
So Cherry, how does, would a joint venture resolve that issue? Would you be really monitoring the joint venture agreement and understanding ownership?
So as part of our business licensing, we require articles of incorporation and certificates of good standing and all of those kinds of things. So, through the special use permit and the business licensing process, we can ensure that the entities were who they're supposed to be under the terms of the ordinance.
And do we care if it's the same ownership with BOA or not? As long as it's required to have retail, do we need a joint venture?
So I think the concern was that ultimately, although the special use ordinance may require that if the retail ceases to operate, the co-working also has to operate, that from a practical standpoint, the enforcement would need to go with the ownership of the building and to a lesser degree the businesses, and we wanted to ensure that those were all the same entities, or individuals at least. Even if they weren't the same legal entity, they were the same persons.
But let's touch on that, because I don't think you can, because the ownership of the real estate is going to be different than the ownership of the buildings.
Ultimately, the last time around, that was also the same. Although they would be different LLCs, they would be the same individuals that comprise the LLCs.
Well, are we speaking of the ownership of the businesses?
That's what
And
it was last
building?
time. The ownership of the businesses and the building were going to be the same individuals, even though they might be different LLCs.
Could you have the ownership of the building or the entity that owns the real estate in some degree be on the hook for code enforcement if there's similar enough ownership? Meaning, let's say the owners of the building is an XYZ Corp. The ownership of the entities has 50% of XYZ Corp ownership on a parent level, and then the other 50% is BOA, right? Because it sounds like what we're talking about here is you've got the applicant owns the real estate, plans on leasing the real estate to the operator, which is 1 degree in one side co-working space, and then the other side is retail. I don't mean one side versus the other. I mean those are 2 users.
Right.
And I think what we're talking about is that the 2 users would ultimately have some kind of a joint venture, so that there's common ownership, so that, quite frankly, co-working space has a stake in the game on the retail to ensure that retail is succeeding. And if retail needs a shot in the arm because they're not doing well, business isn't good, it's incumbent upon co-working space ownership to make sure that they're either putting assets in, putting money in, making sure they're staying liquid, and operating.
Right.
But that's separate from the ownership of the real estate. So then the question becomes, can you have the owner of the real estate under our code, I don't know the answer to this, be on the hook for, let's say, they aren't complying with certain things, and we want to make sure that the landlord, if you will, because I don't think we usually do that.
So I think there's a way we could structure the ordinance. I need to talk with our village attorney, but I think there's a way that we could structure the ordinance such that the special use is granted to the property owner and the co-working business.
Yes.
I think what makes this complicated is that the retail space is not, it's the separate joint venture piece that makes me uncomfortable in not knowing how to structure that ordinance. Because most of our uses where we allow a service use with a retail component, it is all one business. It's all one use so that we can ensure that the fitness studio doesn't just empty out all their retail racking and leave it vacant and operate their fitness studio behind. That's what's distinct about this proposal that makes it more complicated than a typical special use might be. Like we did for Stretch Labs, for example, recently. That was a special use where they had a lesser retail area, but it was all Stretch Labs.
But in this case, the applicant is the owner of the building.
The applicant is the owner of the building.
If you look at the language in the original ordinance, it talks about exactly what we're talking about, but it was identical. So I don't know if that's something that the applicant's prepared to do. They talk about some kind of a joint venture. The joint ventures can mean varying degrees of allocations of ownership.
Do
So
we need to get in the weeds on that, or can we let them figure it out?
this ordinance, that at least if we're going to talk about precedent language, says identical. So
That's part of the special use.
of prior to
Right.
special use. So, again, do we want to get in the weeds with that or not? I don't know, but
Can we just use the same language?
and Dave is the expert here, can reaffirm this, is joint venture could mean 5%, 95%, and could be 50-50. So do we want to get in the weeds? I don't know, maybe, because if we don't, then, and we don't specify it, then either the village board is going to have to, or if you don't specify it, then they can do whatever they want.
We have staff work with our village attorneys to work through the weeds of this.
Why can't we use the same language that we already approved in the last one?
Because it says the ownership of the co-working establishment and the ownership of any parent company must be identical, which means
Oh, I see.
the co-working space that is owned as Brick and Mortar as a parent must be identical to the ownership of the parent above. That won't work. So we have to specify what the ownership of this kind of joint, specify it, or this language doesn't work.
I just wonder if requiring a joint venture, it sounds interesting, but is it really necessary as long as the special use condition is that you must have a retail space that's open for business, and we could even, here we had convenience store price, the majority of the inventory must be available, it's gotta be stocked, right? So if BOA goes bankrupt in 3 weeks and they replace it with something else, is that fine? We care?
Because the special use is issued
Place
to the
of
owner of the building.
responsibility to run with it.
Right. And that way we're not trying to manage a JV, that language seems challenging. But if the end result is just, the goal is to get retail, and if they don't have retail, you have to shut down all operations, then it's gotta be open for business 7 days a week for certain hours, gotta be stocked. If it's not, you gotta close it.
I like that better. It's just place the responsibility on the owner. Maintain that stream of responsibility. And how they manage that is insignificant compared to the result that's won.
It is probably easier to manage from a staff standpoint, like trying to figure out whose ownership of what JV, and now that BOA goes out of business, now we need to redeem them and bring in a new joint venture partner. And
Well, I think Commissioner Hoffenberg really spoke to the thought process behind the previous ordinance conditions very well, which is that if they were common ownership if the retail space was struggling for any reason, it would be incumbent on, and the owner of the rest of the business and property would have every reason to support and make sure proactively that that retail space worked, rather than letting it get to a point where it was empty. And then the village has to shut down the co-working space as well.
But I think that condition might still exist even without a JV, right? Because if all of a sudden the business is floundering and they realize like, well, we're gonna have to shut down, I assume they're gonna do it somehow. We'll make you a loan, here's a $10,000 loan, go get your inventory, or, you know, go do some better marketing.
Where do we protect what retail is sold there? We don't want a cannabis store, for example. Where is that covered?
Code doesn't allow for cannabis stores.
So that there's guide rails.
I mean, it would have to
bring
be
it in.
permitted use. I think what is a little bit tricky here, though, is we're approving a specific site plan as part of the special use. So any other retail entity that's going to go in, unless they're going to sell, I don't know, smoothies that is the exact same footprint as the acai old place, they're probably going to need to amend the site plan.
So they'll come back. That's where we come another way.
That would be the most likely outcome, is just knowing as tenants come and go, it's very rare for them to be able to just use someone's existing space exactly as it is.
I hear you. I'm torn about that. I mean, it's like, how much are we going to place the emphasis on what Charity was just alluding to prior? The board put so much importance on this co-ownership for a reason, versus us saying, you know what, it doesn't really matter that much, because you're right. At the end of the day, what's their motivation? They have to shut down the whole working space until they get a new retailer in, negotiate a new lease, get them up and running, doing work, and they're open for business. So every day that they're shut down, they're losing money. They're losing money.
Right, that's why I think you get to the same result without complexity. Yeah, that's a pretty powerful disincentive to like customers.
It's just a further extra conservative, mechanism. And maybe we don't need it to be identical. The other alternative we could say is some commonality. Commonality of ownership, no less than X%. Not getting movies there, but you could say not less than 20%, 10%, 50%, whatever the number is. But at least at that point, they're putting some cash in for the asset goal establishment.
So do words that would make the identities of ownership, that paragraph make sense to you?
First sentence is fine. The second sentence would you have to change. And instead of saying must be identical, you could say the ownership of the co-working establishment must own no less than X%.
But I think what you're saying is the owner of the retail must own an interest in the co-working.
Yeah, there.
That's all you really care about. Because clearly, the real estate owner is going to own an interest. And I don't think the owner of the acai company is going to put up a huge capital contribution to the co-working space.
No, I wouldn't expect the ownership of Bo would have any ownership of co-working.
But that's really what a JV is getting at. That there's some common ownership of both parties. At both parties. That means they both put money into the co-working space.
I don't see it the same.
That's why, issuing the special use to the owner of the building, the applicant here, they're the ones that are responsible. They don't want the co-working or the retail to go out of site.
Right.
Now they've got no
Right.
revenue.
Right.
So I think that kind of, again, keeps it at a very high level, but it's enough to protect, I think, I guess I haven't thought it through all the way, but I think that would be enough to protect the village in terms of keeping the businesses operating, because the owner of the building has an interest in
Yeah.
Because just so you understand what I was thinking there was ownership of the building is just the applicant, right? Co-working space might be similar to the applicant, it might be little applicants, they have investors, whatever. And the owner of BOA is, for the most part, the BOA owners together with a little bit of the co-working owners as well. So I would keep I don't anticipate, I'm curious why the scenario you described, why would the BOA owners need to invest in the BOA?
So who's the tenant, I guess,
Of what?
of the building?
There's two tenants. Right, there's kind of two spaces.
Right, so, but I don't think they're envisioning two tenants. I think they're envisioning one tenant, and that tenant would be the JV.
I guess that's a good question. Is that a,
No, but let me suggest,
but that's an important
there's
component here.
a problem. Should there be a change of retail space operator,
It has to be
the
separate.
owner may not wish to use the same percentage ownership as a JV. So we stipulate percent ownership tying hands the party. That's why I'm thinking if the owner of the building is party to creation of the working space owner, and theoretically also has some string of tie to retail space because they have the permit, why not just make them solely responsible?
I think the other element that is at play here in there would need to be some commonality of ownership between the co-working business and the retail business, because if they are two entirely legally separate entities and two entirely separate uses, then a whole slew of other building code requirements would apply, because they would no longer be one use. So requiring some commonality, whatever that degree needs to be, I think would help ensure that their site plan as proposed could be approved by the village in compliance with International Building Code.
So they have to be, the way that works is you have a landlord who wants the building, who's leasing to one tenant, that has to be a joint venture.
That's what I was thinking.
But we don't have to talk about exact identical ownership of co-working parent and BOA parent. There's just gonna be some commonality of ownership here. Right. And it's a joint venture, and they can work it out themselves on who's responsible for what, who pays what portion of the taxes to the landlord based on percentage of square footage of the space. Like, let them work it out, right? And so now I understand what you're getting at. I think that's a great point, especially now that we're shared with them. So I think they almost have to. They almost have to form a joint venture to do this. But I like the idea that the landlord's on the hook as well.
Yeah, so we keep retail sales required condition. Keep condition B, but rather than say identical ownership, it's that the owner of the tenant, the owners of the tenant must be majority of the tenant.
How about
The owners of the building must own it.
How about it's as simple as the ownership of the tenant must be a joint venture between the building, the
owner.
the owners of the co-working space, which must have commonality of ownership with the owners of the building.
Yeah, right.
And B, the owners of the retail.
Ownership of all the entities involved.
You're gonna have to say this. You're gonna have to say this. That was a job. But before anyone says it, is BOA a legal entity right now? Are they how are they organized?
So it'd be BOA will have an entity for BOA La Grange, so it'd be BOA La Grange LLC. This is just unclear. There won't be percentages, it'll be the commonality.
You're going to form your own entity for this site. They're going to form their own entity for this site. Those two entities are going to form a joint venture. It's going to be the tenant that will open this site, be obligated under the special use permit, not again. I'm not your lawyer, you can work that out with legal counsel, but that's, I think, what we're envisioning here is you've got a company, I assume, that's your parent that's operating all your different companies. And Boa's got their company, but you each will form a separate entity for this project.
Right.
Those two entities will get together as a single entity. Call it 30 La Grange Road Tenant LLC or whatever it's going to be called, and that entity will be kind of commonality. You guys will work out whatever percentages you want to work out. But that joint entity, which is both of you, will be the operator of this site and will lease the entire space from your real estate ownership entity. Does that make sense? Because what we're figuring out here, and this is what Sherry just alluded to, is you can't separate the two. So there can't be two separate tenants from the real estate because that would be two almost like separate special use permits, two separate licenses, and this is all got to be one.
Right, because you'd have one party that's renting a space that has no retail, and one party renting a space that has 100% retail. Right. So, see, the JV is the only way to accomplish it.
Right.
Right.
So the JV would be a separate LLC, in other words. Like you form an LLC, you each would.
Yeah, understood this is, so I guess the, not an attorney, process that, blind spot would be, always obviously a restaurant, right? Office. Let's say there's risk associated with one of those items, right? Someone slips at Brick and Mortar, someone gets sick at Boa, right? Whatever. How does that impact?
You get with them and you draft a limited liability company operating agreement, and you guys allocate responsibility on yourselves. And you get insurance.
Okay.
Basically, the way you do that, again, this is not us giving you the
Well, it sounds like it.
You're working with lawyers on it. Who identifies who for what. You'll get insurance to handle all this, but that's really where you'll just have to get some lawyers to help draft an agreement that kind of allocates all that between the two.
Going through, right, so permitting, right, then it's one entity. Going through health, one entity. Okay.
Business licensing, one
Business
entity.
licensing, one entity. Okay.
Yep.
Understood. Also, just trying to wrap my head so I can, tomorrow morning, I can have a conversation intelligently. But, okay, so I understand. All right.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like we almost have no choice with the licensing and the permitting. And the way that this statute is written for the special use permit, it has to be that way. I don't think we have any choice.
It's what we were planning on anyways before we came in here, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it gets complicated here with that yet. I think that's
Thanks for working through that, of course. It does.
So we'll put that one condition, and then the rest will come back and summarize. So we have the retail sales required to be opened, that if you stops operating retail sales, the co-working has to cease as well. We'll have the emergency response. Is there any other condition? We can come back and summarize the identity.
Do you care about the operation of hours? You need to divide it off.
It's already in, it was in the packet, like the times that maybe we just go with what's in there.
Yeah, so they've reduced the retail hours. Is that of concern, given the special use requirements? Is that acceptable?
As long as it's normal business, I think it's, as long as it's open until 5.
We don't do that for anybody else, do we?
Well, it's a special use, so oftentimes hours of operation are limited in the special use.
Well, I would actually say the reverse, not limited.
Right, requiring a minimum is kind of the opposite, but this is all about requiring retail activity as part of the use. So it's a little bit flipped on its head from what we typically do.
Okay. Sorry, we're discussing operation hours, so that it was at least those hours that were mentioned in the text.
So they can stay open later than 5.
This was their general hours of operation. So, some minor fluctuations, fine, but these were to be their normal hours of operation. Hours of operation being specified in a special use are fairly common. We don't have to include them. We could say just a minimum threshold, needs to be open 6 days a week, a minimum of 8 hours or something like that, or whatever the commission likes that finds meets the criteria for special use.
6 days a week, 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Is that realistic? Okay, you guys? Yes. Okay. All right, let's go with that then. Nice, that's a minimum. All right, once we're checking these off, the events, is there any discussion on this? Is there any more?
Well, we didn't have the I don't think we did minimum. I didn't know. We didn't really discuss the maximum. Like, do we care if they had a bunch of events? I don't know what
I don't see, I'm not sure why ban. Okay. Yeah, since they're open.
Yeah.
Okay, all the time. Right. Anyone disagree with that? No, because they have to apply to noise ordinances, they, all the other. Yeah.
I think the limit on the maximum number of events was that these events could be, a minimum number of them had to be for the retail, but then they also could be for the co-working. And there was a little bit of concern about parking and traffic impacts if it became like an event space.
Okay.
But obviously, if it becomes something different than what it's originally approved as, that's a whole other conversation about whether it's still in compliance with its special use permit.
But, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sherry, but this is being approved for co-working space, not event or party space, right?
Right,
So
correct.
the use, they're all of a sudden having a bunch of parties, it's not allowed.
Right. But they could be business events,
Yeah, like
a conference, a seminar.
Right.
But again, if that becomes something that really becomes predominant, is it really a co-working space anymore, or has it become an event venue? I think that would be the question from a code enforcement standpoint.
Is there an issue with capping it at 24 per year of events in your co-working space?
I wouldn't want to limit it though, 'cause what if they have customers who want to have a conference room?
Yeah, and then we'll just rely on different code
Yeah.
provisions too.
And then do you have to code enforcement too? Put that down there, you know, grades and stuff.
Okay, more conditions? Anything else? Obviously, we got emergency response in there. Any discussion about parking or decals? Any concerns there? Okay.
Parking with decals was for the workers.
People go.
People who employ.
No, for customers.
Customers.
Is that, was the statute or at least the policy for the employees?
So the sweet spot has been here for 10 years. In that time, they've always been allocated a certain number of CBD decals, which are typically for employees, but with a co-working space, it's kind of blending the line between customers and workers in the downtown. But the distinction in how that's administered then is it's incumbent on the co-working facility to manage and allocate and collect those decals from the users of their facility.
Clarification.
Sure.
How's it written? Is it a minimum, or is it we're just saying around? How is it?
You mean for the park?
The 25.
For the 25, yeah.
I believe when we talked, you were flexible on the 25, so I put 25 around requested. That's kind of the conversation that we had. So that's how it's written.
100%. How is it in practice, right? Is it, we need 26, that's okay. We need 30, we need 14, we need 1. How does, I'm just curious just to understand so that we can get it. Because there's obviously an unknown component there that we appreciate the flexibility. Obviously, we're hoping that we're purchasing these.
Can't an individual buy?
An employee of a downtown business can. I think the intention was that this is the anticipated impact of this business on our parking demand and our parking facilities. If it's going to be very different than what's been proposed in the application, then that's something that the village would have to evaluate, whether we have capacity to provide that in light of all of the parking that we need to have for our employees in the central business district.
What are the details effective?
I'm sorry.
What are the decals effective that we're talking about?
So with a CBD parking decal, you can park in the garage. You can park in designated spaces in Lot 5 at Ashland and Callender. And then there are some on-street CBD decal parking spaces on Harris and on Callender west of Ashland, as well as I think, on Harris, the other side of Harris.
And so does the village have a policy already about buying these passes that can just be applied in this instance rather than putting it in the special use?
So we don't have,
anything?
we don't really have something specific.
Okay.
And we didn't limit it to an exact number in the special use ordinance, but with a special use, what we would look at is the original application and approvals and everything that the ordinance is based on. And so if it was around 25, then that's what we would do. If the applicant came back and said we need 75, we might be coming back to the planning commission to seek input on that.
What's the
We would
duration?
want to include that.
What's the duration of the decal timeline?
They're monthly, I believe.
So we probably should include that in the special use terms.
What are we including?
And then if I may, then we'll revert back just for streamline, just go with the 35. If we're saying it's up to and around, then we prefer to have the higher of the number.
What kind of payment is involved here?
It's $20 a month per decal.
So $30, 35 times $20.
And it's on an on-demand basis, right? So if day one we need 3, and then day 2 or month 2 we need to increase that. Just to understand that's how it's a rolling. Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah, there's not like an application deadline, right? It's as needed.
We're going with 35.
Well, I want to make sure that that's okay with staff. 35 parking spaces in the garage or.
We're looking for guidance.
Yeah, I think we're looking for guidance. Is that too many? Are you comfortable with 25, not 35?
I'm comfortable with 25. I think we can sell them 35 decals. I think currently there, during regular business hours, are 35 parking spaces in the garage that are readily available. Well in excess of that. But we know we have a lot of non-compliance with the parking decal program, so I guess my only word of caution would be that as compliance becomes better with the CBD parking decal, with our new parking enforcement technology that we're implementing, your customers may not find as many readily available spaces as there are today. But that would be something that the business would need to manage for
So
themselves.
if we allow them in the ordinance up to 25, then you're required, because it's in the permit, they could always go for more. And as staff decided we have plenty of space, you could sell them more. If you felt that there was problems with parking in downtown, you might have to say to them, we're allocating you 25, you're asking us for 25, we can't really go above 25. Is that accurate?
Right, if we got into a position where we really had limited inventory, we would have to limit the decals that are available. And so perhaps not including the exact number of decals in the ordinance is best for the village's overall management of its parking inventory.
Yeah, so just they have the right to apply for them for the rest of us.
And as they are available.
And that keeps it available for other businesses in the downtown.
Just for conditions, is there a current availability number? I mean, are currently available?
I don't know that we have a cap specifically currently in place. On any given day, a weekday in the parking garage, we have over 100 parking spaces available.
Out of curiosity, if this passes, it goes to the board, it passes. When would you believe you'd be in business?
When would be opening? In 12 to 15 months.
Yeah, so I guess leaving the parking decal question as can fly, I guess putting a number on today doesn't make much sense.
Other conditions? Okay, so let's do the wording of the ownership. Glad I had Susie for leave. The lawyers, please.
So I think we just start with, it says the convenience store and the co-working establishment may be owned by separate corporation companies or we.
Can you speak into your mic again, please?
Right, so I think we would stick with the convenience store and co-working establishment may be separate corporations, companies, or legal entities. However, the ownership of the, I don't know what the right term is, tenant or co-working operator, must be owned by owners of the building and owners of the operator of the retail.
Can I take a crack at this maybe? I feel like I took notes last time and I have a shot again.
Okay, good. All right, here we go. Let's see. Here we go.
So rather than talking about the convenience store and co-working establishment being separate entities, the building must be occupied by one tenant. That tenant must be must be an entity with commonality of ownership of both BOA and Brick and Mortar.
Well done.
That's specific, yeah.
Do we want to specifically say names?
I think that's what we're approving right now.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're at.
Or do we want to, well, let's assume that the retail changes in 3 years. Then we have to go back, so do we want to say that
We could say the retail operator and Brick and Mortar
yes,
rather than BOA
Say that
specifically.
because they are not the originally common with the owner of the property. So that may be the variable. We ran into that problem with the JV percentages. And we didn't want it to touch, so.
So that works, the retail owner.
Okay.
And how are we addressing the idea that the owner of the building is?
Well, the owner of the building is the applicant this time. Last time they had not yet purchased the building, so Brick and Mortar was the applicant. This time they've acquired the building, so the building owner is the applicant. So the ordinance will be approved, issued to the applicant as building owner for this use, the tenant of which an operator will be this new entity.
So the tenant would be the license holder, the business license.
Yes.
So they'd still be bound by village code. The owner will have the responsibility for administering special use permit conditions, so they both have responsibility.
Okay, so anything else for Gus? It's really just the retail sales, the ownership, for hours of operation, we estimated 6 days a week, about 8 hours a day. The events we took a flyer on, the convenience store products, I don't think we're defining that at all. Then we got the emergency response is in there, and for the decals that we need to apply for the village. Was there another one? The window.
Like the front, the Grange.
But we still have to do the design review and site plan.
So that's separate.
Yeah. Okay. And that was just the special use.
Okay.
Okay. Is that good for you guys? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, let's do that, site plan approval. As far as I'm concerned, you know, everything exterior is not changing except perhaps the windows on the alley side. Is that
Yeah, right.
well, it's from the windows there, what they're changing.
Yeah, they're taking on
On the alley side, I think they're putting in more.
on the south, or on the west side.
I'm not sure. South. I was going south side. Yeah.
You were talking about the alley side. So
I was talking the alley side. Is that correct? The new windows, alley side that we're in, whole new entrance, whole new windows.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, correct. Low down. There's nothing low down now. Everything's the second floor. Correct. And you're knocking out for
Many were previously there.
Oh, they were bricked in at some point?
Many of them, not all.
Okay.
And so for what it's worth, the architect tried to keep the original one full time.
Is there any concerns about the design and site?
I don't
No. You're okay with the painting of the brick?
As long as it's maintained and looked after.
And the roofing material, no copper?
Expressed a concern about that,
Painting with the brick.
right? No, the copper.
And then pasting.
They said it was regrettable that they can't keep it deep and copper. You know, that's a personal thing as far as I'm concerned.
But in this photo, it looks like it is. Is this not the right photo?
I think they're gonna paint that. You guys are painting the copper, so we won't see the green patina anymore.
Is that right? It looks like, yeah.
Concerns? No. Glenn, it's your aesthetics?
The smell is just something.
That's what I was thinking. I think I'll reference that as, no, he's fine. Make that in the minutes.
Yeah, I smell that.
Okay, so there's no concern about
No.
design or site? Any other concerns overall about this project? Staff, do you think you have the ideas and the direction that you're hoping for?
I've gotten all the notes.
Okay.
Plus the Latin.
Okay, so at this point, I think there's no more discussion. We're up for a vote. I think we would need a motion that would include hopefully all the parts, the special use permit, site plan approval, design review. Graham, have to make a motion?
I'll make the motion with the conditions. Do you want to read it in? Carry or?
Sure. With the conditions as noted in the prior ordinance approval, condition A, condition B as modified to require that there be one tenant, and that tenant must be a joint venture with commonality of ownership between the retail operator and Brick and Mortar, the co-working operator. The minimum hours of operation, item C from the original ordinance, that the retail space must be open at least 6 days a week, 8 hours a day. And item E, retail products, that the retail area must be kept fully stocked with products for sale. And item F, as it appeared in the original ordinance, an emergency button that directly connects to the police department LTAC must be installed and maintained in a common area of the co-working space.
Do you include the decals?
I did not include the decals.
Apply. How do we put it? Allow it to apply. And the right to apply for decals administered through the village manager, village staff.
Jerry, you said D and E were not applying, right?
D wouldn't apply. I thought you wanted to leave the retail area must be kept fully stocked with products from E.
As David said.
Yeah.
Or does that not
Yeah,
apply?
this would be the last sentence. It needs to be kept fully stocked with products for sale.
Yeah.
That goes part and parcel. Operating a business, yes.
But it is important to include in the special use permit because otherwise we have no theoretical requirement to have you have stuff.
Right, yeah, so it gives a little teeth.
Okay. Those conditions,
So moved.
your second.
Second.
Moved in second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Schwartz,
Aye.
Wentink,
Aye.
Hoffenberg,
Aye.
Mosier, Egan, and Pace.
Okay.
Motion passed.
So then, if we can tell the applicant the next step, please.
So the next step would be the village board on the 24th.
No. Oh, the 25th of November?
Oh, yeah, I guess
Yeah,
it would be
no.
too soon. So maybe December?
In December.
Okay, in December.
I'm sorry, what?
In December, sorry. The village board in December on
Okay,
December 9th.
the 9th, December 9th.
great. Okay, then, that takes care of plan case number 277. Is there any other business, staff? There is no other business. Are there any announcements?
Just that the village board continues their final discussions on the comprehensive plan on Monday night, and that is expected to wrap up this month. We are having a kickoff meeting this month also to talk with CMAP, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. We received a grant from them to do a corridor study to advance the comprehensive plan recommendations for South La Grange Road.
Yay! Who gave us that money?
CMAP.
Wow, great, fantastic. Excellent.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay. Good announcements, either are announcements. Commissioners, any other announcements, discussions beside David's foot, anything?
Do we think we'll have a December meeting?
We're not tracking anything right now, so.
There's no other discussion, do we have a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
Great. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.